Joining us now is Virginia House of Delegates Speaker William Howe. He's a Republican, obviously, because he's the Speaker of the House, and he's from the 28th District in Virginia, and he is the man, the guy, the icon of this transportation compromise. We first get in Virginia a comprehensive transportation reform bill after 3 decades of hand-wringing and futility. Speaker, great to have you with us.
Thank you, John. It's always good to be here.
Now, Speaker, I don't know about yourself, but I have being being pointed out now as the only conservative commentator in the galaxy that was an enthusiastic advocate of this transportation compromise. I'm being vilified, raked over the coals by everybody and their brother in the blogosphere. Such a nice guy that I am, too. Even Red State today, Eric Erickson, took aim at yours truly. Now, I supported this because we have to fix our transportation infrastructure in this state. We've not been able to get this done in 3 decades. What is it that people are missing with this?
Well, I'm not sure, because you're exactly right. We were at a situation where we were losing our top rating in business because of the inadequate transportation infrastructure we had in the Commonwealth. It was getting more and more difficult to get people to work, to get produce to stores, and on and on. I think that the plan that we crafted was pretty significant, because it addresses the specific needs, the unique needs that we have in Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads, by allowing them to keep all the additional tax money that they raise and use it just for transportation projects within their region. And the rest of the state, ROVA, rest of Virginia, raises about $800 million in the 5th year by kind of swapping out some of the gasoline tax for sales tax and getting some other revenue sources. Titling tax on automobiles went up, but the bottom line is we had to do something. And when I talk to my conservative friends, and I'm catching it just like you are, John, I say, well, what's your solution? And they don't have solutions. And you said recently in a blog, and I thought it was very, very, very wise, that leadership requires tough choices in a crisis, and that's what we did. I think it was a good compromise. It was reaching across the aisle. What people overlook is the plan by the 5th year will generate about $400 million a year in general fund revenue, which is something we've been fighting for years. We said you can't lay this on the back of new gasoline taxes, which we didn't. It's a nice combination of general fund and there's still some gasoline tax involved and some titling tax. It's a great compromise, and it's going to provide for Virginia's transportation resources and infrastructure needs for the next 10 or 20 years. I think it's something that we're not going to have to come back and address every year like we've had to for the past 25 years.
Mr. Speaker, 2 quick items. You coined a phrase there, ROVA, the rest of Virginia. Let's go to that. What is it that you saw in these spreadsheets as you were headed to the final vote on Saturday that put this over the top for you, especially as it goes to the areas outside of Hampton Roads, outside of Northern Virginia? Because, as you know, for years, part of the stymie for a bill like this was that the rest of the state, ROVA as you called it, didn't want to pay for transportation efforts in those 2 areas.
Well, they certainly don't have the demands in Central Virginia, Southwest Virginia, Shenandoah Valley, South Side, as they do in Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads. And so you could understand their reluctance to for example, one of the proposals that we've seen frequently over the past 15 or 20 years is, let's just raise the gas tax and that'll solve the problem. Well, you'd have to raise the gas tax. To raise this amount of money, you'd have to raise the gas tax 17, 18, 20 cents a gallon. And then under the statewide formula, Northern Virginia might get 20% of that. Hampton Roads might get 15% of that.
Right.
So it didn't really address their needs, but it put a really significant tax on people in Southside, Southwest, Shenandoah Valley. So, again, this was a good compromise. The people in the rest of Virginia should see their gas tax. Well, their gas tax will go down. They should see that at the pump. Studies have shown that when gas taxes go down, the pump price will follow about 90% of the cut. If you look at the way we've structured the tax on gasoline now, it's 3.5% of the wholesale price, and
Right.
and that's going to be about right now. That'd probably be around 10 or 12 cents a gallon. So that's 5 or 7 cents a gallon less that people should be paying. And there's a 0.3% increase in the sales tax, and on $100 purchase, that's what, 30 cents. That's not going to break the bank. And for people, particularly in Southwest Virginia, some of my Southwest Virginia people really thought this was good because they drive a lot down there. They use a lot of gasoline, and their purchases aren't as big as they might be in Northern Virginia.
Yes.
So it's a good compromise.
Look, the reason that I like the bill is because, and I did a column the other day, I called it Road Rage, the bill that everyone loves to hate. When you've got a compromise, Mr. Speaker, that everybody you talk to absolutely can't stand some piece of it, they hate it, they loathe it, but it passes, you got to think to yourself, you know what, I really got the best compromise done when everybody is so mad about it, because that's what the art of compromise is, and we had to get this done. Now I want to go to the Republican Party for a second. Right now, the RPV in a chaotic state because on the one hand, you've got the leadership like yourself, Republican leadership in the General Assembly and the government and the governor behind this bill. On the other hand, you've got the inevitable GOP nominee for governor, the Attorney General, Ken Cuccinelli, on the opposite side of it. Terry McAuliffe, the presumptive Democratic nominee, is now vilifying and criticizing Cuccinelli for not being behind it. And there's really no backup here for Cuccinelli because the RPV is still behind it because they're protecting Governor McDonnell. So where does this play out?
Well, I think it's all going to sort itself out. I think right now, and I can understand the angst that some of my very conservative friends have. They don't want to see tax increases, and I don't either. I think this is the first tax increase I've voted for in 26 years. Kurt Cox from Colonial Heights said he didn't even vote for the self-imposed tax, sweet potato tax on sweet potato growers, and
right.
Nobody likes, no Republican likes increasing taxes,
right.
But as you pointed out earlier, sometimes you have to do tough things.
Right.
When I talk to Ken Cuccinelli or some of these lieutenant governor candidates, and I say, well, what is your solution? And they'll say something, not Cuccinelli, but they'll say something like, well, we just got to squeeze more money out of VDOT. Well, it's tough to squeeze $1 billion out of VDOT. The governor, when he was elected, did an audit of VDOT, and we found over $1 billion in money kind of sitting there, but that was a one-time opportunity. And you at some point, you just have to look at raising revenue for something like this transportation. I think people overlook also, John, the fact that spending in Virginia is pretty level. We're spending in many areas lower than we were in 2007, 2008. When you look back 10 years, the general fund, and adjust for inflation and population growth, the general fund has grown at -1%. We are not spendthrifts in Virginia. The legislature has done a good job of controlling spending, but at some point you just are faced with these problems.
Speaker Howell, do you see any particular executive amendments that Governor McDonnell might go forward with prior to signing the compromise?
I'm hoping there won't be any major ones. I really haven't spoken with him yet I'm trying to let things settle down a bit about what he needs to do. I'm sure there are tweaks or things that need to be done, but hopefully it won't be anything major. And
Speaker, you're not afraid of this falling apart before you get it back for a vote, I guess. Is that April 3rd? Is that the pickup day?
April 3rd is the reconvened session, and we're not voting on the bill at that time. We're voting on the governor's amendments.
Right.
He might make. And no, I don't think it's going to fall apart. I think that that I've been in contact with a lot of my membership and my caucus, and some are receiving accolades and some are not. It depends on where you are, what part of the state you're in. But I think by the time April 3rd rolls around, people will have kind of coalesced, and I really do think at the end of the day we're all going to get behind candidate Cuccinelli and whoever gets the nomination for Attorney General and Lieutenant Governor, and I think you'll find a united party behind them, because we all look for free markets and ways we can make Virginia a better place to live, but at the same time deal with the tax climate and whatever. So I think at the end of the day we all kind of coalesce around a common bond.
Mr. Speaker, I asked this of not only Dick Saslaw from the Senate earlier in the week, but of Majority Leader Kirk Cox, who you brought up in your last answer. I would ask you the same. With this short session, which is essentially 45 work days, would you be in favor of extending that session in the future to another 15 days? And would you be in favor of limiting the type and scope of bills that come before you, since there were so many filed and not a lot of the people's business gets done because you get to certain choke points with that short of a work period?
No, I wouldn't be excited about lengthening the session. Actually, we get an awful lot of good stuff done. And actually, John, I don't know if Kirk mentioned it to you. I think it was his idea. Mm-hmm. But several years ago, we limited the number of bills that can be introduced in the House in the short session to 15 per member, and that sounds like a lot, but you got to remember, with Virginia being a Dillon rule state, that is, the local governments can't do much without authorization from the state. We get a lot of bills on allowing local governments to monitor grass cutting and things like that, and so I think that we don't need a longer session. And the other problem is it's harder and harder to find good people who are willing to serve in the legislature, because it takes so much time away from their work.
Right. They are citizen legislators, after all.
Yeah, we're all part-time legislators. We all have jobs back home. And the longer you take people out of that home environment and drop them down in Richmond, the less productive they can be. And it's a real problem. I think Virginia does very well with the type of session that we have now, 60 days and then 45 or 46 days. And I would resist expanding it.
Speaker Howell, we talked earlier about some of the outrage from the conservatives in the party on the right in reaction to this compromise bill, and one of the threats that are out there is that certain delegates that went with the compromise are going to be targeted and primaried. For instance, Delegate Joe May from the Leesburg area now has primary competition. We expect others to pop up simply in retaliation for being behind this landmark transportation compromise. Do the incumbents that went with this, Mr. Speaker, have your commitment that you are going to personally campaign for them and get involved in any primary challenges they have from the right?
Oh my goodness, yes. I always support my incumbents in primary challenges, both financially and any other way I can support them. Now, Joe may say, Speaker, I just assume you don't come up to Loudon, but I can send him some money or whatever he wants. And by the way, I would support anybody who didn't vote against or didn't vote for the transportation package. Anybody in my caucus who didn't vote for the transportation package and had a primary for whatever reason. I try and support all of my incumbents the best I can.
If he gets the GOP nomination for lieutenant governor, would you then support someone like Pete Snyder, who was adamantly against this and showed support for those who voted against that transportation bill?
I would certainly support whoever gets the nomination. I understand where these candidates are coming from because it's a convention, because you'll have probably the more conservative wing of the party at the convention. They all are moving to the right, and so you can outright the other. And at the end of the day, I will certainly support whoever gets the nomination.
Do you think the vilification that Governor McDonnell has gotten in the past week, I mean, we had one particular website redstate.com nationally, call him an idiot. Then National Review piled on. Do you think this outside criticism of the governor for doing what many of those that live in Virginia understood had to be done, do you think it's over the top?
Yeah, I sure do, and I can't imagine what he's going through. But that's, we all have to have thick skin when we get in this business, and he did what he thought was right. And there's a great op-ed piece in the Richmond Times-Dispatch this morning commenting on that, comparing Maryland's situation with O'Malley and Governor McDonald. And Governor McDonald did the right thing in his mind, and I don't think he's going to back off of it. And John, I thank you, and you hang in there. Don't let them beat you down. You're the voice of sanity out there, and I appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate that, and if one of your incumbents don't invite you to Loudoun County, we will.
Okay.
Great to have you there.
Thanks a lot, John.
Speaker.
Call me anytime. Okay.
Thanks for joining us.
There you go.